Hi, I'm Dana Kletke, and I'm the co-executive director of Mentoring Artists for Women's Art in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm also a visual artist, and I work in drawing and mixed media. We are located on Treaty 1 territory on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and the present, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I am here today with Mary Lowe. I'm excited to talk to you about your work in your exhibition, Whimsical Meanderings. Can you introduce yourself?
I am Mary Lowe, and I am an artist that works out of rural Manitoba. I live on a farm with my husband. My children have obviously grown up, but I'm very inspired by animals, and I do a lot of clay sculpture as well as paint. So
in looking through your work on the Manitoba Arts Network website in this exhibition, Whimsical Meanderings, it's very obvious that you have a very special relationship with animals and nature. And I'm wondering if you could talk about how you were inspired to create work.
Yes, well, excuse me. I went to university and took fine arts and majored in sculpture. And I've always had cats when I grew up. I never had a dog, but I did have cats. And I was passionate about horses as a young girl. And I drew them constantly. And I just always wanted to have a horse, and it never happened, but it did when I grew up. But anyway, so I've always had an affinity. Excuse me, I'm going to have a sip.
A dry air.
Oh, boy, is it ever. Anyway, I've always loved animals and their form. And when I started out with, at the university, I took clay sculpture, and I was just so enamored with form and especially animals. But we did people in university. We had models, and that was huge fun, but they're not as easy to do on a farm, to get a model to come over and sit. But I have done people as well, but I just love animals. I do have an affinity with them. I see them as people, you know. When I look in their eyes, I see another being, and I try to capture that in my work. So, yeah.
Lovely. You certainly capture the essence of the spirit of the animal, I would say. They come alive within your painting.
Well, thank you. That's sort of the idea. I used to paint cows. When I first moved to the farm, these cows were out in the landscape, and they were, because I was doing clay sculpture, they looked like sculpture to me. And I love the form of them, especially Charlet, which are white, kind of whitey, easy, light brown cows. And they look like big rocks. And I decided, I did a whole series of painting cows. That was the first thing I did, really, is a series of cow paintings. And then I progressed into cats and horses and lots of, other things. But the meanderings painting usually starts off, or not always, like sometimes but often I will have an image of an animal to be my basic subject, and then carry on from there, using different watercolor techniques that I've kind of I've become very familiar with, and really enjoy. It was, when I painted cows, it was more like I had a photograph and I was painting, but it wasn't the same. Now I'm using the watercolor to lead me, and it's way more fun.
It does seem like you have a a real close attention to detail. Like you're very skilled in the detail. And in the watercolor paintings, there's the detail is still there. There's very controlled detail, but then there's also this sort of free flowing paint that's really lovely. And I'm wondering, how do you control and let that flow at the same time?
Well, that is a very good question. And to begin with, it's free. I mean, you have your drawing to work with, and you have you're going to in some of them I don't, but some of them are just. I took a class from Pauline Braun, and she did Northern Lights. She taught us how to do Northern Lights. So we were just adding color and letting the water diffuse the color throughout the paper. And I didn't put a scene on my Northern Lights. I played around with it a bit more and added, I had lizards and dinosaurs and all sorts of stuff. And I thought, wow, that was fun, because it was just so liberating not to have anything in particular. And then I started moving the paint around and drawing big ribbons, and then I could see these horses. I saw a horse in one, and then another horse came to me over, and I started seeing landscapes, because when you do the Northern Light technique, you have all this beautiful light, and they remind you of skies and sunsets and well, skies. And so that was one type of painting that, and then the others, I kind of have an image, and then I wet a certain portion of it and drop in the pigment, and the pigment moves. And I might pull it with a brush, or, there's no end of what you can do with it. And so really those ones you might tilt it and let it move. But it's all within the inside of a subject. And then after that, after you've moved the paint around and you can drop little bits of color in. You might make blooms, just drop water on it, and all this beautiful explosion of wonderful detail comes out. So it's free at that stage. And then sometimes I add salt, and boy, when you add salt, there's this whole textural complexity that you can't paint. It's not something you'll ever be able to paint, but you can paint in it and bring out qualities within it. And with the salt, I can see figures, like there are faces, and there's animals, and there's houses and bridges and trees, and it's just never ending. And it's you can sit there and paint for hours, and it's fun.
Well, you certainly make it sound fun.
Well, it is.
I have a hard time with paint because I try to control the medium too much.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's it. And I mean, you start off with these big brushes, and then by the end of it, I've got these little tiny brushes, and I am trying to control it. You have to be able to draw what you're seeing. And that's where the clay sculpture really helps, because you're trying to draw, you see an image and you sort of think, oh, that looks like this. But you have to fill it in and make it look like that. And sculpture really gives you a good idea of how things are put together, so that when you're seeing maybe almost a view down of a cat's face. And because you know what that looks like from sculpture, because you've had to, when you sculpt something, it's like you're drawing it from every possible angle. You're drawing it from the top, from the side, from the bottom, from the back, the front, and all the different angles up and down. And so it's really helped me in my painting, because you get a suggestion of something and you have to be able to draw it. So that's been very helpful.
A true understanding of the body shape in a three-dimensional way.
It's three-dimensional. It's really interesting sculpture. I'm really glad I've done it. I enjoy doing that too a lot.
And how has that led into these paintings then? Because you've worked more in clay, or have you always painted, and do you move back and forth between sculpture and paint?
Right. Well, I when I married my husband, I hadn't done any art since art school. I really love sculpture, but I hadn't done much. And then I married my husband, and he was a potter, and he had clay, and he had kilns. And I started doing sculpture. And when my kids were older, and that's what I did. I did sculpture, and I did it all the time. But I also joined the Hamiota Art Club, and that was a group of ladies that got together once a week, and we painted. And I started trying watercolor. I'd never done watercolor. We were doing oils when I went to school, but I tried to learn watercolor, and I got pretty good at it. You know, I could paint a pretty decent picture, and then I got bigger and bigger until I was using a whole watercolor sheet. And so, because I do the animals, and I've always sculpted the animals, it does give you a sense of the three-dimensional form and where the shadows would be. And I mean, I had a photograph, like back when I did the cows, I was looking at a photograph, but it helped with an understanding of what that shadow meant. You know, it wasn't just a dark spot there. It was sort of the shadow of the rib cage, or just the form of the animal. So I think my clay has informed my art, but I don't really feel as though my painting, I mean, my clay has informed my painting, but I don't feel that my painting has really informed my sculpture. You know, sculpture is just it's every now and then I do a sort of fanciful way of painting an animal, which isn't realistic. And that may be partly because of my paintings. Free me up a bit.
Right. And leading into that, because you're working so realistically, a lot of your color schemes are very realistic as far as the animals. But then there's other paintings that have like blue and red. And I'm wondering if you could talk about your use of color.
Right. You know, it's just experimenting. When I first started with the colors, I had another instructor, and she was all about three colors: see, red, blue, and yellow. You just need your three basic colors. And when I started, I was using three basic colors, and I added white as well, because white was, you could add so much with white gouache. But mostly it's just the cats are kind of more realistic color wise, some of them. And they're my later pieces. I've done more cats lately. And because I kind of got out of just the three color thing, but I like the three color thing. So I'm sure I'll repeat that. But I want to try, I go to I go and buy paint, and I'm always like, oh, look at that color. I want to try that color and that color. And now I want to try a lot more colors. I just want to go to town with colors. So I have to go and buy more. Right now, I haven't bought any paint in ages. So
Well, that's exciting.
yeah, I'm going to do it.
And so I noticed in your cat paintings, or in some of the paintings, you have they're in a background, they're in an environment. They have they're somewhere. And then in some of the other ones, it's just really focused on the form of like the horse, and I'm wondering, how do you make those choices, and do you make those choices when you first go into the painting, or do they come about as you're painting?
Well, it's kind of funny because a lot of them I paint, I have an idea of, and I want to leave the background white, but I'm a really messy painter. And so often something happens, and I think, or I finish it and I think it's not, I don't, I want to do something with that. So it can be either I've made a boo-boo and I had to put something in the background, or I like it, I didn't like it enough by itself. It just somehow it didn't work with the white background. But I prefer leaving the background white usually. I really like that effect. But I also enjoy, you know, painting away in the landscapes that I put them in. And sometimes, no, I don't know which I prefer. And you know, it just happens. It's kind of fun. It's very intuitive. It's not like I plan anything much. I just go with the flow and takes the pressure off me. It's all going to happen with me or without me, and then I can go in and play around with it. But if it's going to work, it has to work on its own.
I know because I don't paint, but I have tried painting. I know with watercolors, they're not as forgiving, I would say, you know.
Right, you can't erase them that well. You can
No,
try.
you have to start again or change it. I don't know, but
Yeah, well, the thing is, you know, it's amazing if you don't give up on a piece, how much you can do with it. You know, you can take out color. Once I painted a cow painting, and I had it in show and everything, and I really liked it. And my son said to me, "Mom, where's the leg to this cow? You're missing the leg." And he was right. There was no leg there. And to put it was a white cow, so to put the leg in, I had to go over, you know, the background, and I was able to do that just by lifting the paint out. It wasn't a pure white cow, so, and the background wasn't, you know, it was kind of green, but I was able to somehow manage to get that leg in.
wow.
I mean, I couldn't believe I had forgotten it, and no one else had noticed either. Like, and it was so obvious when he mentioned it. So, yeah, you can really alter them quite a bit, actually.
Okay. Good to
So
know.
never give up until it's too late.
Yeah, that's great advice. I had a question about, because you work so realistically, do you end up doing a lot of sketches and drawing? Like, do you have an active drawing practice that you do, that you keep drawing to get the forms, or is it just completely
Uh,
intuitive that when you start?
I usually start with the drawing. I sometimes I have a grid, you know, because I it's pretty big, and when you're that big and you're that close, it's so easy to get distortion. So I might divide the paper up and the painting that, or the picture that I want to get the form from, because usually I do have a photograph to take a form of a bird or a cat or whatever. And so I might divide up the paper, and then I just draw on the paper, and there's unfortunately a lot of eraser marks sometimes. So there's another technique that I'm thinking I'm going to try and use more often, is to draw on a similar size white piece of paper, and then just draw on that, erase on that, and then when I have the form, just do the pencil on the back and trace it on, kind of. So I might try that, because the drawing can be problematic if I don't get the proportion right, and it's very depressing when you think you're just doing great, and then you put it up and think, oh my God, the legs are way too short, or the head is way too big, or yeah. So the drawing is a bit problematic, but I think this technique I learned from a friend will help eliminate all that erasing. It's not good for watercolor paper. Yeah, so I didn't really draw at home much. I haven't, I used to do portraits all the time and draw a lot, but now I just go right into I'm always doodling though. If I'm sitting at a table with a pencil, I'll be drawing something, you know, so I guess I do draw.
And do you have your studio in your home, or do you have a studio elsewhere, or how do you work? And you also work in clay, so do you have space
Yeah.
for both?
And my studio is my dining room table. I'm married to a very supportive husband, because he just says, all I need is a foot. square foot. That's all I need. And he will sit down to dinner as long as I leave him a square foot. So not many men would be that obliging, but the table is often covered in clay or covered in my sculptures, or because I have to keep them there because my kiln is outside. You can't freeze clay, so you have to have it dry in the house. And I have cupboards where I can put some things and whatnot, but it tends to be on my kitchen table, everything. And I like that because I feel like I'm at home. It's wonderful.
So I imagine that would limit size then, the size
Well,
you could work, or
the kiln actually limits the size too. Like it's for clay work anyway. And as far as watercolor, I go as big as I can, like with a full watercolor sheet, and that that fits on the table okay. You know, I can do it, and he still has room. And
fantastic.
every now and then I will clean it off. You know, it's not always there, but it does tend to get, yeah. And size, I would like to go bigger in my watercolors, but I haven't figured out how you do that. Some people can do it on canvas, watercolor on canvas, but I tried that once and I didn't really like the results. You couldn't get as much dark. The contrast just wasn't as good. So yeah, I think I'll just stick with watercolor paper, but it's the framing that is, it's hard to frame stuff reasonably when you have big sheets of watercolor paper.
Right. And in your show, you have quite a few, like I
Mhm.
think 14.
Yes, they all had to have frames and they were all bought, there weren't any, well, some of the smaller ones you can find secondhand frames, but the bigger ones, they don't tend to have many of those in thrift shops. So
Yeah.
I had to buy them. Huh.
Just looking at my questions for you. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the symbolism in your work. So you were talking about how you have other images within the images, and I'm wondering, do they have significant meaning to you?
Right, that is a good question. Um, I am not in any way a conceptual artist. I I just am not. So when I paint, it is purely intuitive. It flows, and I have no idea what's going to come out of. Some people read meaning into it, but I am just meandering about the paper, finding all these little things that become little pictures within a picture, but they don't relate to anything other than what I see in the paint. It tells me. So it isn't as if it's a thought process in any way. It's totally, it just, the paint is leading me on a journey. So it's kind of sad. I would love it all to have unity and meaning and whatnot, but it doesn't.
Okay, you're listening to the paint.
The paint's telling me. Blame it on the paint.
Yeah. And what are you working on now? What is your new work?
Sculpture. Actually, a friend wanted me to make her dog for a present, and so I made this dog, and now you have one dog, you have to fill a kiln. You don't want to run a kiln empty. So I made a whole bunch of big polar bears and big cats, and I've got them ready for the kiln. So that's sort of what I've been working on lately. I haven't been painting. I painted a few at the beginning of COVID, and they were so bad that I just thought, nah, I'm not going to do this for a while. I've lost my touch. I don't know where I'm going. So I quit. And every day I say, oh, I'm going to start a painting today. And I haven't yet. But I think it's coming. I'm going to try.
Well, there's something really nice about what's grounding in clay, and the tactileness of the materials probably is soothing
Yes.
and meditative in a different way.
yeah, they're both wonderful. They're both meditative. They're both, one's very sensual as far as the feeling of it. And the other is just the eyes, it's more color and movement. It's all very meditative. Everything I do, I find it's meditative because I don't have to think, that's always nice.
And I think we're almost at time. So I just wanted to ask you if there was anything you would like to say about the show, or anything that you would like the viewers to know that see the work.
Well, I would like the viewers to take time, because it takes a long time to paint these paintings. And so often you see at an art gallery, somebody walking and looking and walking on. And you can sort of get an idea of my paintings that way, but the more time you spend, the more you discover in them. And it's really, well, it's, for me, it's just hugely fun when I go and look at paintings I did before that I've kind of haven't looked at for a while. I just wander around them and just find all these little things that are fun to see. And it's like discovering things. And I just hope that people will take the time to, even if they just pick one painting. I have one painting in the group I named it Sitting in a Tree on a Cliff by the Sea. And it's a painting with a whole lot of faces and things in it. But there's one spot that has a tree, and it's maybe this big. And then there's a person sitting in the tree, and then there's two people below the tree. And then there's the trees, it's just a block of color that the tree is on goes down. And then there's another blue color that comes in, and it really, and then the little guy up there. It's just fun to discover that. And so I named the painting that, hoping that people would look for that in the painting. But most of them, I didn't do that. I just named it something. But I should always have something in the painting that I want them to look for. Maybe I would get them to stay in front of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And it's been really great to get to know you and more about your work. And the work is at online at artgallery.manitobaartsnetwork.ca. And I'm sure touring the province.
Right. Yeah. I think I'm in Thompson now. I'm not sure, but I think so.
Great. Well, I look forward to seeing them in person someday. And
thank you very much. This has been pleasant indeed.
Yes, for me as well. Okay, well, you have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Thank you.